Welcome back to SMU Stories. Today, I have an incredible guest with me, also a dear friend of mine, Brooke. Brooke, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we begin, can you just take a moment to introduce yourself for the audience?
Thanks, Bora. I'm super excited to be here. My name's Brooke Donelson. I went to SMU Cox School of Business. I graduated in 2018 with a major in accounting, and I minored in Spanish. I've been in the Dallas area on and off for the past, 12 years now. I've moved away and I've come back, but yeah, I'm super excited to chat with you a little bit about SMU and my experience and everything I love about it.
Oh, great. And we're so excited to have you. So we're going to start from the beginning. So your origin story of SMU. Why did you choose SMU? What made you be part of the Hilltop? While you were there for your 4 years, what were you expecting to get out of it?
So I grew up mostly in Northwest Houston, just around the spring area. It's kind of by the Woodlands. And so when I was looking at universities, I really thought that I wanted to get out of Texas. So I applied to universities mostly outside of Texas. That was not my parents' favorite idea. They really wanted to keep me a little bit closer. So we still did quite a few college tours within Texas. I toured quite a few, but none of them quite stuck out as much as SMU did. I had heard of SMU originally through my father, who went to SMU only for about one semester of his master's before his job moved him to the Northeast. And so he had always spoken really, really highly about his time at SMU and really was encouraging me to go and visit. And I was like, I don't know, Dallas doesn't seem far enough away. I hadn't really grown up going to Dallas a lot, so I didn't know much about it. But when I visited and I went on my official tour, I remember just stepping on campus and being like, this is the most beautiful university I've seen ever. I loved that it was in a really livable city and the idea that once I graduated, I could stay in Dallas and have that network and, grow up through my education and then in my career in a really great city rather than I don't want to point fingers at some other small college towns in Texas, but, I think a lot of people love coming to Dallas post-graduation. And so I submitted my application. I knew I wanted to go into the business school. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to study yet, but got accepted. And, immediately it felt like home. So.
I love that. So what made you choose accounting?
So I knew I wanted to do business. My father was in business all of his life. My mom is very entrepreneurial. I just always knew that was probably going to be my track. I did not know specifically what major I wanted to do. I think that kind of was shaped for me actually when I did an abroad semester in Madrid, Spain, the first semester of my junior year, which is kind of around in business school when you're really finalizing what major you're going to do. Up until then, it's kind of, SMU has the pillars where you kind of take classes from all different academics, areas. So I wasn't really sure until I went abroad and I took my first finance class. And it was, I think, not as rigorous as the finance classes on campus at SMU. And I was like, if I go back to SMU and try and take finance 2.0, it's going to be disastrous. Yeah, I was like, you know what? I'm good at math. I think accounting is honestly more organizing than it is actual math. And I really liked my professors that I'd had in accounting. I thought it was, kind of came easily to me. So yeah, I decided to go with accounting. And I knew that would probably be a good foundation for whatever I wanted to do in business.
I love that. And I know we're going to touch base a little bit about kind of your social impact and your volunteering experience, but I know you were very involved on campus. So can you touch on about, what organizations you were part of, what that really did shape you during your 4 years of being part of just the business fraternity to other organizations? So let's dig in a little bit deeper on that.
Yeah. I definitely kept involved. So I already mentioned I did one semester abroad in Madrid. And then on campus activities, I was in a sorority. So I was a member of Kappa Alpha Theta, which later in life became, during that time too, but later in life became very important to me because it ultimately introduced me to a nonprofit for which I have a really deep passion and volunteered with for nearly 6 years. I was in a business fraternity, Alpha Kappa Psi, which was great. That was more of like an academic fraternity, but I made a lot of great friends. We saw some really cool speakers. They had really cool events where they would help with like resume building and mock interviews, and really enjoyed that. My freshman year played club soccer, which was a blast. That was
Love
something I did all throughout high school. So we got to travel kind of around the Dallas area, which was so fun. And then I think it was my sophomore year, I joined the wakeboarding club. I've never
I didn't even know
wakeboarded.
we had a wakeboarding club.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. I'd never wakeboarded a day in my life, but it just sounded like so much fun. And I had just learned to water ski the summer before.
Hmm.
So, I went to night at the club and
Yeah.
saw the booth and decided to sign up. And then I was on a campus services advisory panel, which is basically where they like brought in different departments of SMU campus services. And then we were like a peer student panel, and we would kind of give feedback, whether it was on the food, whether it was on the athletics and like the gym facilities that we had. We met with people from some of like the lecture series that we had on campus. So quite a few things. And then I was also on the founding board of Dance Marathon, which was like a really core organization. One of my friends, Kimmy, brought it to SMU's campus to raise awareness and funds for Children's Miracle Network hospitals.
I
And
love
yeah, it
that.
was a really cool experience.
What did, being part of all those different organizations teach you about like leadership and community?
So I held kind of various leadership roles within some of those organizations. And then I I would say the biggest thing it taught me was like time management and to really get involved with things for which I had a real interest, not just something that was going to be like a resume line item. I think a lot of people I saw would be, they would sign up for, I don't name any club or organization because they knew it was going to maybe like look good on their resume post grad. And then I just found that they wouldn't be as involved. And we had some of that in some of the organizations I was in, where I was like, if you don't really want to do this and have an interest and a passion in it, and you're not going to dedicate your time to it, your time would be better spent elsewhere. So I tried to really make sure that whatever I was working in and working on, I had the space for it and I had the interest in it and making it better and making myself better and my peers better. So that was huge for me.
I love that. So, like, we transition into like your 4 years, you're heavily involved. Then you landed a Deloitte internship
Yes. Yeah.
while still at SMU. So, what did being a part of that, how was that experience? What did that teach you about yourself?
Yeah. I think one of the greatest things that SMU gave me is the community of incredibly smart and ambitious people.
Mhm.
So, the summer after my sophomore year, I attended a bunch of leadership conferences for underclassmen. So, I went to leadership conferences with EY, with Deloitte, with another accounting firm, with Capital One. And they were either in Dallas or in DC, which was so
Oh,
cool. And out of those, I ended up securing an internship with Deloitte in their audit practice for the summer after my junior year. And so I felt really like confident about my future because I'd gotten that pretty early on and was very excited. I started to kind of figure out what I thought my path was going to be. I was thinking, I'll do a fifth year, I'll get my CPA, I'll work at Deloitte for a couple of years, I'll learn all the basics, and then, I'll go into industry. That did not end up happening exactly like that, but I did do the internship with Deloitte. And that's where I think I really found my interest in the professional services industry of business. So, the audit world was not for me ultimately, but I really liked the client facing nature of
yep.
that work when I was able to do it during the internship. So, although I had accepted my full time offer with Deloitte and I thought I'd already enrolled in a fifth year at SMU, and, of course, my parents were stoked. I had a job fully secured at the end of my junior year. Around halfway through my senior year, I started to rethink that decision, met with a career coach and we talked with my parents and ultimately they were like, we trust you. If you want to do something else, pivot.
I love that. So, you pivoting was, you graduated. That means you went to Sundero.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
pivot.
So I did not know what consulting was in
Mhm.
college. I don't think anybody really knows what it is.
No.
I probably have some friends even today that don't really understand what I do, but I knew I really liked the like I said, the client-facing nature,
Mhm.
of the role in audit, and so I started to look at other ways I could have that. And so I learned about consulting, which is basically like professional problem solvers that span across every single industry, at like every single tenure all over the globe. And it's just like this really unique opportunity to learn a lot really fast.
Oh, yeah.
And so I started looking into opportunities within consulting, went back to the job fairs, and found a like pretty small consulting firm in the Dallas area called Sendero. I think at the time when I joined, they were about 200 people. And so went through the interview process. I knew I wanted to have a consulting role that was really hyper local,
Mhm.
because I had a lot going on outside of work in the Dallas community that I was already committed to. So found Sendero, kind of kickstarted my career there. Incredible. I would recommend it to anyone. I got incredible experience across a bunch of different industries and like senior level kind of interactions at a
Yep.
very, very young age where I was, like, in the same room as the CIO of, I almost said the name, I don't think we're allowed to say client names, but of an energy utility company, and,
Yeah.
like, that was just so cool to have as an experience at, what, 22, I think?
Oh, yeah. It teaches you a lot just about yourself and, like, going through that process because you transition from, like, accounting to be like, "Okay, let's go into consulting." And then I was fortunate to meet you when I joined Thought Ensemble, which, became Parveda a few years after. So and now you're a consulting manager at Credera. So, looking back, what was kind of like that thread connecting all of those moves and also just think about how did each chapter just make you better?
Yeah. Yeah, so I was at Sendero for, I think, about 3 years, and I started fully, on site, and then COVID hit, and, everything changed, as everybody knows. So,
Mhm.
I was working from home full time, roles were kinda shifting. There was a lot changing in the industry just because there was so much unknown at the time, and so I started in my free time, kind of looking at what other opportunities might exist. And a mentor of mine, he was actually my career coach and like a senior manager to me at Sendero, had gone to Thought Ensemble. And, I really respected him and the career path that he had been taking and really had a lot to learn from him. And so ultimately I ended up, chatting with him and following him over to Thought Ensemble. Thought Ensemble was an even smaller firm. I think when I joined, we were like 50 people, if even that. Yeah, and like you said, that's where I got to meet you. So it was just chock full of great people. Surprising that we hadn't met before because we've
I
run
know.
in the same
I know.
circles.
We were not
But
too far
yeah,
apart, but we might have just crossed paths. Just
totally. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that was really interesting, to go to a smaller firm. And again, I think at that firm, I really stepped up in like the community service aspect that was like corporate facing. So I got to come in like with experience, but with a fresh perspective. And I got to be on some really cool projects. I really, really enjoyed it. And then ultimately, Thought Ensemble was actually acquired by a larger company, Paraveda,
Mhm.
and that was so interesting. I'd never been a part of a company that was acquired before, so I learned a lot about what that means for the employees, what it means for, management, kind of the impacts that it has on you all at once or not
Mhm.
at all as they kinda trickle down. So, I was at Paraveda for a little over a year and then ended up taking kind of a step back from consulting for a bit.
Mhm. And we'll go into, like, what you did before going into Credera, but I also wanna talk about because so many times you mentioned consulting, right? And we talk about, like, change management consulting. That's what a lot was like in Thought Ensemble, Parveda, Sendero, and change management, I feel like it's still a word that a lot of people, they go be like, "What do change management consultants do? Like, what do you do?" And it's really that, like, people aspect, right? The human side of, like, change. Through your journey, what kinda has been the hardest part of that, and what have you learned about the human, like, nature through doing this type of work that we do?
So, I first learned about change management as, like, an industry or, like, kind of a role at Sendero first.
Okay.
I had always been like an agnostic consultant, is what they call it when you don't necessarily specialize in anything. So I'd worked across project management, strategy consulting, and change management, kind of all wrapped into one, depending on what the project was and kind of what it necessitated. Change management is basically the practice of nurturing a big or small, honestly, but, like, typically the projects that I've worked on are very large enterprise level changes that the company are going through, like transformational things, whether it's implementing a large new system like an HRIS, whether it's introducing, like, I don't know, new standard ways of working. Or most recently on one of my projects, we like developed and deployed like an AI role play platform. And the change management aspect of it is making sure that like the user groups are brought along throughout the entire process from the
Mhm.
inception of whatever that change is all the way to like successful adoption, and ultimately being like advocates for whatever that new process platform is. So it's really interesting because it's a little bit of a mix of psychology with
Yeah.
the people and the process aspect of consulting, and I find it fascinating. It's a lot more than just communications or, you
Training.
know, training. Yeah, there's a lot more to it than that, which is kinda keeps you on your toes, and it's never the same. There are
Mhm.
frameworks, there are ideas, there are projects that you've done before where you think maybe you can take what you've done and do it somewhere else, and you never can, and that's the whole purpose behind it, is that it's very unique and tailored to whatever is happening for that company.
Was there a project that you loved more or that excited you? I know you mentioned the AI project you're working on, but throughout your career, was there anything that you're like, "Oh, this is so great to see it through, to see, like, the execution from start to finish?"
Yeah, it's definitely my most recent project has been the coolest thing I've ever worked on. I'm working as the program director
For
for our team for
for
a pharmaceutical company, and they were looking to enhance their training and certification process for their field sales reps, for, the sales reps that go and, pitch newly developed pharma drugs to, healthcare providers. And I was on the project from the very, very start of ideation through development, design, deployment, and it has been the coolest thing ever. I have a team of about it kind of fluctuates, but anywhere from like 6 to 8 developers, like 3 design people. We have a communications team, we have OCM leaders, and then working with a bunch of different like therapeutic areas on the pharma side. So it is the largest scale project I've ever worked on. It's probably the most responsibility I've ever had as a program director. And just seeing what our team is able to design and create, and the developers, I don't know how software engineers do it. Like they work magic every single day, and getting to be a part of that process has been probably the highlight of my career.
Ugh, I love that. That sounds so cool, and I love that you got to experience that and just see it because so many times you hear a lot of consultants go from, like, "I only start from, like, the beginning and I don't see the execution," but you starting from, like, the very start to working, building it, I also
Yeah.
feel like that just has so much story to tell in itself. Uh
Yeah.
I love that. So, one of the biggest things, so outside of your consulting career, you do a lot in the community, especially when you were volunteering with Dallas CASA. So, like, and you chaired the Young Professionals premiere event and you were very involved. And I know, like, when we were both at Thought Ensemble Parveda, we were just very, like, we did the golf tournament, you did the annual, like, gala night. How did that work really find you? And kind of like, what does it mean when you show up for your community? What does that mean to you?
Ugh, it's like warms my heart. I love these questions. I love it coming from you because you're so also like incredibly involved in the community. So I know that like you get it. Yeah. So I found Dallas CASA, which is court appointed special advocates, actually through my collegiate sorority, Kappa Alpha Theta. So it was their national philanthropy. And during my collegiate years, you do some fundraising and awareness about your national philanthropy. But CASA, we weren't able to be super hands on because the role of a CASA is to serve as an advocate for a child in the Dallas County welfare system that has been abused or neglected and removed from their home due to safety concerns, and then is placed into, either foster care or group home therapy or placed with friends or relatives. And the role of a CASA is to advocate for that kiddo very specifically, one on one, and be the voice of that kiddo. There are other people in the room that are advocating, in terms of like legal regards, in terms of like psychological regards from an education standpoint. But the CASA is really the person that is just like monthly goes and visits that kiddo, has access to, hearing about their educational records and, all of anything that they need. So I served as an advocate for 5 years on 4 different cases with 5 different kiddos. So it was one of the coolest things and most rewarding things I've ever done. I still keep in touch with a lot of the families of the CASA kiddos, which is, voluntary. They don't have to keep in touch with me anymore. But we just formed really great relationships. And I loved the mission and the work of CASA so much that being an advocate was like, I wanted more. So I joined the Young Professionals Board and served as first a liaison between the Kappa Alpha Theta Dallas Alumni Board, and then ultimately chaired their annual philanthropy gala night called Casablanca for 2 years and loved it. It was
Mhm.
so much fun. I got to meet amazing people that were like just doing great things in the community aside from CASA, in addition to CASA, had amazing careers, were just really kind-hearted people that shared that interest in giving back to the community. And yeah, it was just somewhere that I felt immediately at home, made a lot of really great friends doing it. And I still have like a lot of respect for that work, and I would hope to go back to it one day. So
I love that. What advice would you give just like, for the SMU 1911 group, we do tailor a lot to like alumni, getting involved, but also just even future alumni. So like what advice would you give to them who are listening about community involvement? We look at education, SMU gives so much great resources, but I feel like sometimes when you're looking at community events like, oh, maybe I can't donate, I don't know how to be on a board, or like what does it mean to actually like serve on a YP board? What are my duties? I don't have enough experience. I'm too young. So like I just want to hear your kind of like advice or kind of like what do you give to, other individuals like I want to join the board or who are listening.
everyone has something to give. Like,
Mhm.
everyone has something to give, whether it's, your time for volunteering, your advice from, like, serving on a board position standpoint and giving your experience and lending, whatever skill set you have, or if it's, financial based. And no one of those is more important than the other. And I think at different times in your life, you will have different ways to give. Straight out of college, I did not have availability to do financial support. So, but what I did have was free time and an interest to learn more and, meet new people and get involved. And I would say, like, there is an avenue for anyone to volunteer in some shape or form. I would say, just get started with what interests you. Maybe, whether it's animals or education or, home instability, like housing instability or, there's children, like veterans. There's so much need. And all of the nonprofits in the Dallas area, like, very receptive to how you can get involved. There's a great organization that we both, volunteered with briefly, the Communities Foundation of
Mhm.
Texas,
Mhm.
that is really great, has, like, great information on a bunch of the different nonprofits in the Dallas area, and they can help match you with, organizations and kind of what you're able to do. But I would say don't let the fear of, like, not knowing how you can give back stop you from getting involved because everybody has something to offer. And if you went to SMU, I already know you're smart. Like, there's something you can do if
Yeah.
you have the time and the interest. And, start off wrong. Like, that's okay. Just pick something, go try it out. And if you don't like it, you can pivot. But yeah, just get things started off and then see where it takes you because the way that you'll be able to give and the way it gives back to you will, just be so substantial.
I love that. Okay, so I have one more question before we do rapid fire. So the
Okay.
question is, you were recognized as People newspapers 20 under 40 honoree. And it was
Yeah.
funny because you reviewed my application too before I joined that ensemble.
Yeah.
Perfect. So, how was that being part of that community? But also, how does the SMU community, all that really just show up in your life and in career in ways that you didn't really expect?
Yeah. So funny. Whenever I got the email for the 20 under 40 recognition, I thought it was spam. I was like, I don't know who submitted me for this. I looked at all of the amazing people that had also been recognized that year and that continue to get recognized over the years. And I'm just honored to be recognized in that same group of people because they're just all incredible. I'm like, I don't know if I belong here, who put me here. It's amazing. I think again, this kind of tracks back to something I said earlier. One of my favorite things about SMU and about being in Dallas is that I'm surrounded by
Mm,
really smart, ambitious, and philanthropic
yeah.
minded people. And being in those circles brings out the best in you. I absolutely believe that. I think it's brought out the best in me. And I don't think I would have done all of the things that I have done and, hopefully will continue to do if it weren't for the fact that I'm surrounded by incredible, academics and professors at SMU, incredible mentors at work, really great friends like you. Who also are involved and, care a lot. So, yeah, the recognition was really cool and something that I was not expecting and not a reason I do anything that I do. But I was very honored that somebody thought it was, really worth recognizing and that what I had done had created some sort of impact. Yeah. So my advice for like anyone looking to get involved or, join some of these groups is, reach out to people that
Mhm.
are doing the cool things that you want to do. I have sent a million cold requests to
Mhm.
connect on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is, I joke, like my favorite social media platform. Yeah, you're like a LinkedIn influencer, basically. I love watching your posts. Um, yeah, get involved, and again, it'll give back to you more than you ever
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah, and I mean, I was so fortunate because, like, I started Thought Ensemble Parveda, and then it was like, "Oh, I got awarded," and then you're like, "Hey, I reviewed your application," and knowing you throughout these, like, past couple of years, like, you are not only just, like, very talented in, like, the work that you do, but also just, like, the community aspect, the way you bring people in, it's so very rare, so I just, like and it's like SME community, right? Like, we all are there together to be like, "Hey, how could I help you? What do you need?" But seeing that firsthand from, like, when I first started, like, a brand new job and we were, like, a small team and you're just like, "Oh, how can I help? What do you need?" This is like, and I was so new to consulting. I came from, like, industry background and you're like, "Hey, what do you need? How you can help?" And I think that just, like, really just shows, like, just the person who you are, but also just, like, the different pillars that you've learned through undergrad and everything else of just really building people to be like, "Hey, we're here," like, it's like the saying, like, "There's pie for everyone." It's just like, you're just like, "How can I help you? What do you need?" So it shows that giving back to, like,
Love that.
others as well.
That was really kind of you to say. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm
It's
just, I'm like, I love it, so other people must do it too. So like, come join me.
Yeah. Yes, you're good at bringing everyone together in a way that's like, "Hey, come and learn about this. Hey, like, let's do that." So I do appreciate that of just being just shown just, like, how alumni really do stick together, and
Yeah.
it's even if didn't cross paths, it's so just, like, that nature that you have, so I love that. Okay, rapid fire. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah.
Favorite Dallas spot, to recharge?
White Rock Lake.
Okay. Biggest myth about change management?
Oh, that it's just communications or training.
Best advice a professor or mentor, gave you?
Progress over perfection.
Love that. Okay, last one. What word describes Brooke Donelson right now?
Oh, inflection point.
Okay, I love that. Well, Brooke, I mean, it was so great just to talk to you again, to share your story. and just really just be such a like a rich and inspiring conversation. Your journey from like SMU to really just like leading transformations from some of the most complex organizations that I know we both worked at is also just so incredibly amazing to see. So we're so grateful to have you on SMU Stories. Everyone listening, um, please go follow Brooke on LinkedIn, reach out to her for any community events. She has a great story to tell, and I know we could have been here for hours talking more about it, but we really enjoyed having you on here.
Cora, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. This has been great. And yeah, I would love to connect with the, 1911 group even more, and always welcome to, welcome anyone reaching out from the SMU community. So I absolutely love it. Pony
Thank
up.
you, everyone. Pony out.
Thank you to our sponsors, Sewell Buick GMC, Agility Holdings Group, Probity Advisors, Sound of a Rose, Hilltop Property Tax, Security National Bank of Texas, Boyd, Shackelford, Barnett, and Dixon, Bigham Agency, Life After Ball, SMU Cox School of Business, and Mignon Steakhouse.